Hello, folks. I am Nahchon the developer, and welcome to the Mastery Lab. Today, we're going to be discussing being authentic. What does it mean to be authentic? As we look at our lives, we see all these things that are fake. YouTube, social media, Instagram is the best version of ourselves, but it's not really our true selves, is it? We kind of put things on to make people think that we are living a certain life. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like a mask. And when you have these masks on, the problem that we encounter is that we are suffering internally because we're not being authentic with ourselves. So we want to make sure that we are authentic with who we are. And if we're not authentic, what does that look like in work, play, relationships? And that's what we're going to be discussing today on the Mastery Lab. See, authenticity. When you buy a product, you want to make sure you bought an authentic product. Not a knockoff, not a reprint, not something that's not real. But we walk through life like knockoffs. We put on faces and masks like everyone that's around us so we can fit in because we have to feel like we're a part of something. But the reality is we're not being true to ourselves. And that's what we have to start doing, folks. We have to start being true to ourselves because if we're not authentic in everything that we do, everything we do comes off as inauthentic, as a fake. And what does that look like for you? You're internally suffering. This internal suffering makes you feel like an imposter. You're familiar with imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. I am not the person that I should be because you're not the person that you are. You're inauthentic. And I want you to start thinking about it from this perspective. Where in your life right now can you make a change and become more authentic? Is it your conversation, your communication? Is it how you show up in life? You put on these masks, you put on these airs so that people will accept you. Is it because you don't think that you will be accepted as you are? And I would think that's the truth for most people. They don't think that they can come in 100% themselves and be authentic. They have to look a certain way, say a certain thing, be a part of a certain group or clique for people to say, yes, I wanted you to be around me. And that's where I have the problem. And that's where the difficulty comes in. That's where we have the challenges. Because we're suffering in silence, internally, because we're not our real selves. As you look at the state of the world, I mean, there's stuff going on all over the world. Good things, bad things, wars, famines, droughts. But when we show up as real people, as true people to each other, and we're authentic, healing takes place. Things begin to come together. But we don't do that. We look in the mirror every morning, and we put on our face, we go out to the world with our face on, and we're alone. We're walking and suffering in silence because no one knows our true selves. And we're wondering, how can we get people to know us and accept us? But we're afraid because to be authentic means you must be vulnerable. You must be willing to share a part of yourself that you haven't shared before. You're so used to fitting in that you forgot who you were when you step out there. So here, I want to give you some tips on what that looks like, how you can do it. First thing is this: be truthful with yourself. Tell yourself the truth. What is it that you want to be doing? What is it that you like? You know, you get that meal that your wife, your girlfriend, your husband, boyfriend prepares for you because they think you like it. And you eat it, you really eat it like, man, I'm eating this meal. But you hate it. And you say that you like it because you don't want to hurt their feelings. But at the end of the day, you're still hurting, you're suffering. Why? Because you won't tell the truth to yourself. Why can't you just say, you know what? I know you made that meal. I appreciate it, but I don't like it. It's not what I want. It's not the right mix for me. It's not the right flavors, whatever, but be honest. That's how you make it to the next level of being authentic. You got to start with yourself. When you wake up in the morning and you go through your rituals, your morning rituals, are you putting on an idea of who you want to be? Or are you actually saying, this is who I am, this is who I'm going to become, and this is who I'm going to leave this house as? Or are you going to say, well, they expect me to be this person, that person, and then you go out as this person or that person? You put on another mask, another costume. Just like Halloween, going around trick or treat. You're not treating yourself, but you're tricking yourself, thinking that it's going to be good for you. And at the end of the day, it's not. No one wins when we are inauthentic. Everyone loses. You know why? Because we're walking around as shadows. No depth, no concreteness, no reality, no realness. We're not being true to ourselves. So I want you to think about it from this perspective. What can you do to be true to yourself? What is it? Where are you hurting the most? Where are you getting the most emotional pain? Where are you suffering the most? Where are you at that point of despair? And you're like, I just can't take it anymore. I have to become true to myself. That's where you should start. And usually it's with your communication. How do you talk to yourself? How do you speak to yourself? How do you speak to others? Do you say you're fine when really you're not? Well, you don't feel comfortable saying, well, I just don't feel good. I'm not in the best place. I'm not in the best state. When you can be honest with yourself and you can be honest with others, you can begin this journey of opening yourself up to understanding what it means to be authentic. Authenticity is something that we all crave. We all need it, but very few of us seek it because it requires us to be vulnerable. It requires us to be still. It requires us to be quiet. And if we're not at that place where we can be still and quiet and trust the people that we're with, we're going to always grab that nearest mask. And we're going to put it on. And we're going to wear it with pride. Like, this is who I am. Knowing all along, I'm just suffering. I'm dying inside because I'm fake. You go home and you find something to ease your pain, whether it be drugs, whether it be alcohol, whether it be YouTubing, Netflixing, whatever it is to just drain yourself out so you could feel something because you've been through the whole day feeling nothing because you haven't been true to yourself. You haven't been authentic to yourself. So as you begin to consider and ponder where you're missing your authenticity, I want to give you a thought to think about. Your greatest achievement is being your greatest self. And to become your greatest self is how you reach your greatest achievement. And the only way you can do that is to be true to who you are. Don't wonder, don't ponder, just wake up in the mirror, look in the mirror and ask yourself, who am I? And really wait for that answer. It's not what your friends called you, your family called you. It's not what your parents called you. There's an identity inside of you that's unique to you and has nothing to do with anyone else. So think about that as we go into this break. You listen to the Mastery Lab. I'm your host, Nahchon Developer, and we'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, folks. You're listening to the Mastery Lab, and my name is Nahchon the Developer, and we're talking about being authentic. And I kind of want to tell you my own personal story of being authentic, inauthentic. I'm really good with communication and speaking and engaging and motivating and inspiring people. But I've been really procrastinating about something a friend of mine told me I should do a year ago. He says, you need to get in front of camera. You need to start recording yourself, just having a conversation. And I made all these excuses about why I'm not going to do it. Well, the light's not right. The sound's not right. The picture's not right. The camera's not right. In reality, I wasn't right. I was afraid to put myself out there. And now here's the thing that's interesting about that. My whole job as a mindset, life, and business coach is to get you to put yourself out there. And I'm being inauthentic because I'm not putting myself out there. And I decided yesterday that I'm going to take this step and I'm going to be more authentic. I'm going to put myself out there. So I didn't come in with my suit on, normally dressed up like I normally would. I came with sweats on. It's cold outside, but I decided, you know what? Let me just get a little more relaxed. Let me become more authentic so you guys get to know me for who I am. I am a person who is an optimist by nature, very optimistic, very motivational and inspiring, but yet a perfectionist. And a perfectionist translation is to procrastinate. And procrastinating means I'm going to make an excuse why I won't do something because I haven't become comfortable enough with myself to do it. So on being authentic, you have to know your limits. Your weakness can become your strength if you know what it is. And for me, my weakness was the fact that I wanted it to be perfect. And I realized there's no perfection in life. And the beautiful things about art, if you're a person that watches and looks at art, music, it's the imperfection that makes that melody. It makes it that harmony. It makes things come together so beautifully. When something's perfect, it looks off. It looks out of place. Something's not right when it's exactly right. So being authentic is really about showing up imperfect, motivated, excited about being you, and letting everyone get a taste of your true self. Now you have to mind that though, because everybody can't take all of us. Let's be honest. It's a lot of us where people are like, I can't take the fullness of who you are. So you just turn the light on a little bit. It's like a dimmer switch. And when you understand how to shine your light authentically, honestly, people will receive it and they can embrace it. And then they can say, I want to be a part of that energy. Because we're all energy, folks. All of us we're comprised of energy. We have different levels of vibrations, and we vibrate at a certain level. And what we vibrate at is how we bring people to ourselves and bring things into our lives. But if you're inauthentic, you're vibrating at a false level. So you're not bringing the life that you want. You're actually getting the life someone else desires. Someone else is controlling you. Someone else is telling you what to do and how to do, because you're listening to a story, a lie, a tale that you told yourself, like I was telling myself about it has to be this, has to be that. So I did some research on the YouTube, did some research on Google, and I realized that the videos that get the most views are the ones that are the most authentic, where they don't feel like they're so polished. People want to feel like they're a part of something that's real. So no excuses, no more time to say, I can't do it, because if you got a camera, you got a phone, you got a mic, you can do it. And that's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start putting videos out, talking about different things from, a variety of subjects. But I got to start that, because if I don't, I cannot be authentically myself as a mindset, life, and business strategist and coach, telling you how to grow by being true to yourself. To become the best version of yourself, you have to become one with yourself. And the way you get there is to be authentic. I value authenticity in everything. I want the best of the best, but I want it real. It doesn't have to be 100% polished, but I want it to be real. I want a real engagement. I want a real conversation. I want a real interaction. I don't want it fabricated. So when I go to networking events, I want to talk to a person and find out who they are for who they are. When I ask them, how are they doing? I really want to know, how are you doing? I don't want you to tell me I'm doing fine, because if I look at your face and your body language and I'm saying, your mouth is saying fine, but your body's saying you're in pain. Let's talk about it. That's what I look for. That's what I bring. Are you doing the same? When you show up, are you really showing up? Or are you in the shadows? Are you that wallflower at a party who's like, don't nobody see me, I just came because my friends told me to? If you're that person, there's nothing wrong with being introverted. There's nothing wrong with being that person. But the question I have to ask you is, why? Are you enjoying the life that you sought to enjoy? Or are you just existing, going through the moments, going through the motions, and wondering why life has not delivered to you what you wanted it to deliver? Here's the reality of it, though. Here's the truth of it. If you are not being you, you will never get what you deserve. See, we don't ever get what we deserve. We get what we expect and what we show up for. Half the battle is showing up. If you're not going to show up for yourself, why would you expect me to show up for you? Why would you expect your friends to show up for you? Anybody to show up for you? If you won't show up, why would you expect anybody to show up for you? You have to be authentic. Authentic doesn't mean perfect. Authentic doesn't mean the most beautiful, the most handsome. Authentic means the most real. Whatever that reality is for you, because your reality is not mine. The life that you're living is not the life I'm living. The things I've been through is not the things you've been through. So your perception of what is who you are is only for you to decide. I cannot look at you and say you're being inauthentic. I can only look at you and say, and ask you the question, is this really you, or is this a mask? Is this a costume? Is this a trick, or is this a treat? How are you doing? Show me the real you. Just give me a glimmer of who you are. And if you can do that, now we have a real conversation. Now we can talk about what's really going on with each other. But as long as you're behind the mask, behind the veil, under the shadows, I will never know you, and you will never be able to know me, because I will only share with you my vulnerabilities when I see that you're vulnerable enough to be shared with. See, people trust each other on different levels, but one of the main levels we trust each other on is if you show me yours, I'll show you mine. What is that talking about? Show me your pain. Show me where you missed it. Let me talk to you about what's going on. Let me hear the mistakes. Let me hear how you overcame, because now you give me encouragement. You give me hope, and vice versa. I can do the same for you. But if I'm not true, if I'm not authentic, you will never hear anything. You'll see right through it. You're like, that's fake. That's a con. There's no compassion. There's no conviction. There's nothing there that says that you are truly being who you said you are. So I want to ask you a question. Where today have you done that? Where have you put on the mask? Because you wanted to hide behind it because you didn't feel comfortable sharing yourself because the environment didn't feel right, or you thought something, or a lie you told yourself that you just wasn't good enough, so you cannot show up authentically yourself. And we know there's environments where you cannot show up 100% yourself, but you can show up as yourself. You can show a part of yourself. And it's not about being selfish, self-centered. It's about being true. It's about being open and honest, first and foremost with yourself. Folks, we're going to go into a break, and we come back. We're going to talk more about being authentic. Again, you're listening to the Mastery Lab. I'm your host, Nahchon the Developer. I'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, folks. You're listening to the Mastery Lab. I'm your host, Nahchon the Developer, and we're talking on this segment about being authentic. And I told you in the last segment how I was inauthentic with myself because I was making excuses for why I couldn't put these videos out, why I shouldn't do this, and why I shouldn't do that. Basically lying to myself every day, procrastinating because I want it to be perfect. The reality is there's no such thing as perfection. There is action, though. There is reason. There's cause. There's effect. And you know what the cause is when you are a perfectionist? Nothing. You don't do anything. You're stopped. But when you take action, now you begin to move forward with something. You begin to produce a result, and you begin to pour out. For me, the whole thing is about accepting the fact that I may not be the greatest speaker, I may not be the greatest or anything, but I can be the greatest me. I can be my best version. I can show myself authentically. And that's what I want you guys to get to today. I want you to start really considering, where are you really good at? Because I guarantee you, there's something that you do better than anybody else. I can guarantee there's something that you do that everyone is pulling on you for, and you basically, no, don't worry about it. It's just something I do. No, it's a gift. It's a skill. It's a talent that you've cultivated over time. Consciously or subconsciously, you begin to cultivate this thing, and now people want it. See, I believe the only reason you're still breathing, the only reason you still have breath is because you have something to do. There's something that people are looking for that you're the only one that can bring it. But you got to be authentic with it. Don't act like someone else. Like, who's the next Michael Jordan? Who's the next Oprah Winfrey? Who's the next Steve Jobs? Who's the next Bill Gates? No, don't be the next. Be you. You may play in that field, you may play in that arena, you may play on those courts and play on those stages, but be you. Because no one can do you better than you. That's why I believe, and I always tell folks, when you listen to the show for any length of time, there's no competition. There's only market participants and market collaborators. No competition. Why? Because no one can do what you do the way you do it. Let's look at this. You have Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's, Five Guys, Freddy's, Whataburger, Dairy Queen, and they all sell hamburgers. They're different, but they're all just a hamburger. At the end of the day, they're all selling hamburgers, but they all have customers. They all have something that someone wants. Why? Because they're being themselves. Now, we know brands compete against each other for market share. And I always tell my clients, if you're competing for against market share, you're forgetting something, what you bring. Stop competing with everyone else and start competing with yourself. How can you be the best version? How can you give your clients, your customers, something that you've been giving them, but make it better? Stop looking at what's going on out there and saying, oh, I could do this or I could do that. No, because they came to you for you. If they wanted that, they would have went over there. Stop discounting yourself and start being authentic and honest with yourself. See, here's the problem that we all suffer from. We all suffer from an inadequacy syndrome. We all feel inadequate because guess what? We've all failed. We've all run up against a brick wall. We've all did our best and didn't get the results we wanted. We've all tried. And again, I use this word very loosely because I don't believe in trying. Either you did or you didn't. You did it and the results wasn't what you wanted. So we call it trying. Oh, I'm trying because I didn't get the results I wanted. Reality is you did it and you didn't get the results, so you failed. So let's think about it on a continuum. To your left is desired results. To your right is undesired results. As you move further to the right, you get closer to your desired results. As you move further to the left, you get closer to your undesired results, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. But the fact is, it's a continuum. But if you don't move, how do you know where you're going to end up? How can you recalibrate if you're standing still? See, so we become inadequate. We begin to make excuses about ourselves and for ourselves. And we say things like, I'm not ready. Same thing I was telling myself. I'm not ready. I just can't do it. It's not going to work. Why? Because I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have this. I don't know this. I don't know that. At the end of the day, when all the lights go out, when it's just you, that's what people want. Believe it or not, they just want you. They want you to show up. They want you to be you. With all your quirkiness, all your weirdness, all your uniqueness, all your crazy, they just want to see a piece of reality called you. And when you can do that, when you can be authentic and you can release yourself from the waves of, oh, you should have, could have, would have, and the pains of, man, you missed it here, you missed it there. The only way to become great is to be willing to make a great mistake. If you're not willing to step out, step up, and be that example for yourself and fall on your face, you don't know what you can accomplish. If you don't take those chances, take those risks, you don't know what's in you. Your whole life exists. It's a risk. You know, as an entrepreneur, people say, you know, you should get a job. You should do this because there's security in a job. And I say, no, it's false security in a job. Yes, you go to work, you get a paycheck. But at any point, that company can fold, they can fire you, they let you go. As an entrepreneur, you are the security. But most people don't become entrepreneurs because they don't believe enough in themselves. Because it is a risk. But let's take it a step further. What about the risk of stepping out of bed and leaving your room? There's a risk of falling down the stairs if you have stairs. There's a risk of hurting yourself, the risk of cutting yourself. We live in a state of risk. But we take it for granted because it's life, you know. It's minor risk. But the greatest risk that we feel and we face for ourselves is when we have to show up as ourselves. The fear of public speaking is the number one fear outside of death. Oh, no, I don't want to get in front of a crowd. What if I mess up? And when I coach people on how to speak publicly and how to give a presentation, this is what I tell them. No one knows what you're going to say but you. Calm down. Relax. Just relax, because no one knows what you're going to say. Be confident in your material. Know your material. But if you don't practice your material right before the speech, that's the worst thing you can do, because you're going to get stuck on perfectionism, and then you're going to procrastinate. So then you're going to stumble. You're going to say likes and ums and all the things I tell you not to say, instead of just taking that breath and relaxing and being authentically yourself. This is how we get through life. We show up as who we are, but we struggle. We stumble. We get back up, we dust ourselves off, and we do it again. But only the winners do that. The quitters, or the realists, as I like to call them, they sit there and say, well, it just wasn't for me. How many times did you do it? Well, I did it a few times and it didn't work. How many times? 5 times. Maybe number 6 was the time it was going to work. Just pivot a little bit, change a little bit, make a few adjustments, but don't stop. Don't quit. Because there's a drive in you to get something done. When you're authentic, you keep holding on to that drive. That's that force, that fuel that says, there's more to give. Let me give it. There's more to do. Let me do it. There's more to hope for. Let me reach for it. But are you that person? Are you living that authentic life? Or are you making excuses? Folks, we're about to go into a break, and I want you to think about that. Are you living authentically, or are you making authentic excuses? You listen to the Mastery Lab. I'm your host, Nahchon Developer. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, folks. You listen to the Mastery Lab, and I'm your host, Nahchon the Developer. And on this episode, we're talking about being authentic. I've told you in the previous segments how I was inauthentic by procrastinating. And I kind of want to get a little deeper into this, start asking you some questions about you. Where have you had a desire to accomplish something, but you made every excuse not to take action? Where have you had a drive to do something, to help someone, to start a foundation, to volunteer, to start a business? There's that undercurrent, that push, that still smallness, that voice that says you can, but all the noise around you tells you you can't. The noise is the inauthentic self. It's the not you. It's the not self. It's the part of you that makes you feel inadequate. But that empowering voice, that quiet voice, that peaceful voice, that one that says, you got this. You can do this. That's the voice that you should be listening to. The one that tells you it's okay to fail. Think about where we would be with technology if every inventor failed after 5 tries, 6 tries, 7 tries, 10 tries. Let's look at the light bulb. The things that give us light. If Thomas Edison decided, I've done this 1,000 times and I haven't figured it out, I'm just going to quit, we wouldn't have lights today like we do. See, we think that failure means that something's wrong with us. We consider failure as a mark of our inadequacy, where we missed the mark. Failure is a mark of where you did something. If you're not failing, you're not doing anything. If you're not making huge impacts because of how hard you're falling, you're not making huge strides. And you're totally not authentic. See, humanity is built on failure, not successes. Successes don't tell you much. It's the failures where you learn. It's the failures where you grow. It's the failures that show you who you are on the inside and what you're made of. If you always win, that means you may be great at the fundamentals. You may be good at this. But who are you when you fail? I'm not going to say lose, because you're never losing. You're either learning or you're winning. You're never losing. So who are you when you're learning? Who are you when you scrape your knee, fall on your face? Who shows up at that point? Is it the person with the attitude of, I can get back up and do it again? Or is it that person that says, you know what? It ain't for me. You make excuses. Who are you? Who are you when things don't go the way you anticipated? Who are you when things break down in mid-stride? Who are you when problems arise when everything was smooth? Who are you when your best laid plans don't function? Who are you? Are you hopeful? Are you doubtful? Are you excited or are you a pessimist? Are you grateful? Are you agitated? Who shows up? And here's the thing about authenticity. It's not a right or wrong about who shows up. Just is it you? Because when you show up authentically as yourself, it's okay with failing. You are okay with making a mistake. You are okay with not getting 100 on an exam. But your ego, your ego, that ego, that edge greatness out. Edges greatness out, your ego. Let's talk about that ego piece, because the ego is why you are not authentic. Your ego is why you don't take certain chances. Your ego is why you don't take certain risks, and that you should take, because your ego tells you, you can't do this. Who are you? You're not good enough. You remember when you did that last time you failed? You remember when you did that and it didn't work out, and everyone laughed at you. Ooh, laughter, ridicule. Someone pointing fingers at you and making fun. Oh, the ego cannot handle that. The ego cannot take being laughed at, because the ego, in essence, is a false sense of security. Your ego is that part of you, that inner child that wants to be protected from all the pains and all the hurts. It wants everything to be perfect. The ego doesn't like change. That's why it edges greatness out. Because the only way to be great is to change. The only way to be changed is to take great risk and to be vulnerable. To have a conversation, to ask the right questions, to show up for yourself and others. See, your ego is all about itself. Some would call it pride. Some would call it self-centeredness. Some would call it conceit. I just like to call it ego, because it edges greatness out. It keeps you from being your best self. It limits you. It holds you back. And it's loud. I mean, it's loud. It's loud. It's telling you all these things you cannot do. But you're a creator. You're a human. You're made to create. You're made to do. You're made to invent. But yet, you're inauthentic. So you don't do anything. So you stand by waiting for someone to give you something. And then when you get it, you know what you say sometimes? I know I've had these moments. I've invented that before. I didn't take it to market, but I invented that. I could have done that. Yeah, you could have. But your ego wouldn't let you. You were too afraid to get outside of your comfort zone. You were too afraid to make a mistake. You were too afraid of what people were going to think. You were too afraid of yourself. See, greatness is not about comparing yourself to others. Greatness is about comparing yourself to your last self. Greatness is about standing up to you in the face of adversity. Greatness is about saying, I can, when everything around you says you can't. Greatness is about falling forward, getting back up, dusting yourself off, and doing it again. Greatness is all about being authentic. The greatest speakers in the world are not the ones that are the most eloquent, the most charismatic. The greatest speakers of the world are the ones that you can feel, the ones you can touch emotionally, because you believe that they are authentic. That's the greatest speakers in the world. So for you to be your best self, for you to get the things that you desire from the world, you must be first willing to give. You must be first willing to be vulnerable. You must be willing to be authentic. But that requires sacrifice. That requires the opportunity to get laughed at. That requires the potential for ridicule. That requires you to say, maybe I may not be the greatest, but I'm going to say that I'm the greatest, and I'm going to get out there and do it. They may not be applauding me right now. They may not be celebrating me right now, but I'm not doing it for the celebration. I'm doing it because I have a desire to do it. I'm driven to do it. I need to do it because it's in me to do it. That's authenticity, folks. That's what it means to be authentic. You're driven to become your best self. So as we go into this break, I want you to think about this. Are you driven? And if you are, why are you not driving? Folks, you're listening to the Mastery Lab. I'm your host, Nahchon the Developer, and we'll be back in a moment.